It was 7:42 a.m. when the city's skyline caught fire with the first rays of sunlight, painting the glass towers in gold. Inside the penthouse office of Hail Global, the world was still cold, precise, and untouched. The air was crisp, the silence absolute, broken only by the soft click of Michael Reed's shoes as he crossed the marble floor. He was always early, but never too early. Timing was everything. He set his bag down, straightened his tie, and began the morning ritual that had become his anchor in a world that rarely offered stability. Michael was the kind of man who made order out of chaos. He calibrated the thermostat to exactly 68 degrees, arranged the CEO's desk so that the day's briefing packet sat at a perfect 45-degree angle, and brewed the coffee, Sumatra dark, no cream, half a sugar. He did it all without a wasted motion, as if he'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. In truth, he had. For 3 years, Michael had been the invisible force behind the most powerful woman in the city, and he'd never once asked for anything in return. The other assistants watched him with a mix of envy and awe. They whispered about his efficiency, his uncanny ability to anticipate needs before they were spoken, his refusal to engage in office gossip or after-hours drinks. Some called him a machine, others a ghost. But Michael was neither. He was a single father, a man who had learned the hard way that life rarely went according to plan, and that sometimes the only way to survive was to build walls so high that nothing could touch you. But even the strongest walls have cracks. On this particular morning, Sophia Hail arrived at 8 sharp, her heels echoing like a metronome down the corridor. She was a legend, young, brilliant, ruthless, the kind of woman who could turn a failing company into a global empire before lunch and still find time to make headlines at the charity gala that evening. Her reputation was as icy as the diamonds she wore, and her standards were even higher. 11 assistants had come and gone before Michael. None had lasted more than a year. Most didn't survive a month. Sophia swept into her office, barely glancing at Michael as she shrugged off her coat. "Reschedule the Zurich call," she said, her voice clipped. "Push it to Friday, and tell legal I want the contract revisions by noon." "Already done," Michael replied, sliding the updated schedule across her desk. "Legal sent the revised documents at 7:30. I've flagged the key changes for your review." She paused, just for a moment, her eyes flickering with something almost like surprise. Then she nodded, the mask slipping back into place. "Good."
It was always like this, efficient, transactional, almost clinical. Michael never lingered, never asked personal questions, never gave her a reason to see him as anything other than the perfect assistant. And that was exactly how Sophia liked it, or so she told herself. But today, something was different. Michael's phone buzzed quietly in his pocket, and for the first time in 3 years, he hesitated before silencing it. He glanced at the screen, a photo of a boy with dark hair and a gap-toothed grin, holding up a hand-drawn birthday card. Lucas, 8 years old today. Michael's heart squeezed, a familiar ache settling in his chest. He'd promised Lucas he'd be there for dinner, promised he wouldn't miss another birthday, another milestone, another chance to prove that even if the world was unpredictable, his father's love was not. Sophia noticed the pause. She never missed anything. "Is there a problem, Michael?" He shook his head, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "No, ma'am, everything's under control." But everything was not under control. Not really. Michael had spent years perfecting the art of invisibility, of compartmentalizing his life so that work and home never touched. But the lines were blurring, and he could feel the pressure building, the weight of expectations pressing down on him from all sides. The day unfolded in a blur of meetings, emails, and negotiations. Sophia was relentless, her focus razor-sharp. Michael matched her pace, anticipating her needs before she voiced them, smoothing over conflicts, handling crises with a calm efficiency that bordered on supernatural. But beneath the surface, his mind was elsewhere, on the birthday cake he'd ordered, the gift he'd hidden in his closet, the promise he'd made to a little boy who still believed his dad could do anything. At 4:45 p.m., as the office began to empty and the city outside shifted from day to dusk, Michael made a decision. He checked his watch, took a steadying breath, and walked into Sophia's office. She was reviewing a stack of reports, her expression unreadable. "Miss Hail," he said, his voice steady but softer than usual, "I need to leave early today." The words hung in the air, heavier than he expected. Sophia looked up, her eyes narrowing. "Is there a problem, Michael?" He shook his head, slipping the phone back into his pocket. "No, ma'am, everything's under control." But everything was not under control. Not really. Michael had spent years perfecting the art of invisibility, of compartmentalizing his life so that work and home never touched, but the lines were blurring, and he could feel the pressure building, the weight of expectations pressing down on him from all sides. Finally, Sophia set down her pen. "You've never left early before." "I know," Michael said, "but I can't miss this." She studied him, searching for a crack in the armor. For the first time, Michael let her see it. The vulnerability, the love, the fear of failing at the one job that mattered most. "Go," she said quietly, "but I need you here first thing tomorrow." Michael nodded, relief flooding through him. "Thank you." He gathered his things, his movements slower than usual. As he reached the door, Sophia's voice stopped him. "Michael." He turned, surprised by the softness in her tone. "Is he happy?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. Michael smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him in years. "He is, as long as I'm there." Sophia nodded, something unspoken passing between them. For the first time, the distance between boss and assistant felt smaller, the walls a little lower. Michael left the office, his heart lighter than it had been in months. Outside, the city was alive with possibility, and for the first time he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he could have both, a career and a family, ambition and love. The elevator ride down from the 14th floor was quiet, the kind of quiet that amplifies every thought. Michael watched the numbers descend, his reflection in the polished steel doors looking back at him, tired, older than he remembered, but determined. He stepped out into the lobby, the marble floors gleaming under the evening lights, and for a moment he paused. The world outside those glass doors felt different tonight, lighter, more real. He checked his phone again, a new message from Lucas. "Dad, don't forget the candles, and you promised to sing." Michael smiled, picturing his son's earnest face, the way he always insisted on tradition, even if it was just the two of them. He texted back, "Wouldn't miss it for the world, buddy." As he crossed the lobby, he heard footsteps behind him, sharp, purposeful. He turned to see Sophia striding toward him, her expression unreadable. She rarely left the office before midnight, and never without a reason. Michael's pulse quickened. Had he forgotten something? Was she about to rescind her permission? "Michael," she called, her voice softer than he expected. He stopped, waiting as she caught up. For a moment they stood in the middle of the lobby, two islands in a sea of movement. Sophia hesitated, her gaze flickering to the doors, then back to him. "I wanted to ask you something," she said, her tone careful, as if she were navigating a minefield. "Why have you never asked for time off before? Not once in 3 years." Michael considered the question. He could have given her the easy answer, the one about professionalism, about loyalty, about the unspoken rules of survival in a world that rewarded sacrifice and punished weakness. But tonight he was tired of easy answers. "Because I didn't think I could afford to," he said quietly. "Not just the money, the risk. I've seen what happens to people who let their guard down in this place. They don't last." Sophia's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. She was thinking, weighing his words. "You think I would have fired you for being human?" He shrugged. "Not fired, but maybe you'd start looking at me differently, like I wasn't reliable, like I couldn't handle it." She was silent for a moment, her jaw tight. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true." The honesty hung between them, raw and unvarnished. For the first time, Sophia seemed unsure of herself.
She glanced away, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. "I built this company on discipline," she said, almost to herself, "on never letting anyone see me sweat. I thought that was what it took to survive." Michael nodded. "Maybe it is, but sometimes surviving isn't enough." Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time. "What's your son like?" The question caught him off guard. No one at work had ever asked about Lucas. Michael hesitated, then let himself answer honestly. "He's stubborn," Michael said, a smile tugging at his lips. "Smart. Loves dinosaurs and hates broccoli. He thinks I'm a superhero, even though I burn pancakes and forget to buy milk half the time." Sophia's lips twitched, almost a smile. "He sounds happy." "He is, but only because I try. Every day, even when it's hard." A silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but full of things unsaid. Sophia shifted, her posture softening. "I envy that. Having someone who needs you, who looks at you like you matter." He studied her, seeing past the armor for the first time. "You matter, Sophia, more than you know." She looked away, blinking hard. "Not in the way you think." He wanted to say more, but the moment was fragile, and he was already late. He checked his watch, then met her gaze. "I have to go," he said gently, "but thank you for understanding."
Sophia nodded, her eyes lingering on him as he turned to leave. "Michael, wait." He paused, hand on the door. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Choosing this life, being a single parent?" Michael thought about it, the sleepless nights, the missed opportunities, the constant balancing act. He thought about Lucas's laughter, the way his son's arms felt around his neck, the pride in his eyes when Michael showed up, no matter what. "Never," he said, "not for a second." He stepped out into the evening, the city buzzing with life. The air was cool, the sky streaked with the last colors of sunset. Michael walked to his car, feeling lighter than he had in years. As he drove through the city, memories flickered through his mind. Late-night feedings, school projects, scraped knees, and bedtime stories. He remembered the day Lucas's mother left, the way the world seemed to tilt on its axis, the fear that he would never be enough. But he'd survived. More than that, he'd built something real, something lasting. He pulled up to their apartment, the lights glowing warm in the windows. Inside, Lucas was waiting, bouncing with excitement, a paper crown perched crookedly on his head. "Dad, you made it!" Lucas shouted, launching himself into Michael's arms. "Wouldn't miss it for anything," Michael said, hugging him tight. They lit the candles, sang off-key, and ate too much cake. For a while, the world outside faded away, replaced with laughter and love and the simple joy of being together. Later, as Michael tucked Lucas into bed, his son looked up at him, eyes wide and serious. "Dad, are you happy?" Michael smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Lucas's forehead. "I am, because I have you." Lucas grinned, satisfied, and closed his eyes. Michael sat beside him for a while, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, feeling the weight of the day slip away. Down the hall, his phone buzzed, a message from Sophia. Just 3 words, "Thank you, Michael." He stared at the screen, surprised by the warmth that bloomed in his chest. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as invisible as he thought. The next morning, Michael woke before dawn, the city still wrapped in darkness. He moved quietly through the apartment, careful not to wake Lucas, who was sprawled across his bed clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Michael paused in the doorway, watching his son sleep, and felt a surge of gratitude so fierce it almost hurt. No matter how hard the days got, this was what made it all worth it. He dressed in silence, tying his tie with practiced hands, and slipped out the door with one last glance at Lucas. The streets were empty, the world hushed and expectant. Michael drove through the city, his mind already shifting to the day ahead, meetings, deadlines, the endless demands of a job that never really ended. But beneath it all, there was a new sense of calm, a quiet certainty that he could handle whatever came his way. When he arrived at Hail Global, the building was just beginning to stir.
Security guards nodded as he passed, and the cleaning crew offered tired smiles. Michael moved through the familiar routine: thermostat, coffee, briefing packet, each action grounding him, reminding him that even in a world of chaos, there were things he could control. Sophia arrived at 8 sharp, as always. But today, something was different. She paused in the doorway, her gaze lingering on Michael a moment longer than usual. He met her eyes, searching for the familiar chill, but found only uncertainty. "Good morning, Michael," she said, her voice softer than he expected. "Good morning, Miss Hale," he replied, setting her coffee on the desk. She took it, cradling the mug in her hands. For a moment, she seemed at a loss for words. Then, quietly, she said, "Thank you for yesterday." Michael nodded, unsure how to respond. He'd never seen her like this, unguarded, almost vulnerable. It unsettled him, but it also made her seem more human. The day unfolded in its usual rhythm, but the air between them had changed. Sophia was quieter, more thoughtful. She watched Michael as he worked, her eyes lingering on the small details, the way he organized her notes, the way he anticipated her needs, the way he never asked for anything in return. At noon, she called him into her office. Michael entered, closing the door behind him. Sophia stood by the window, looking out over the city. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. He sat, folding his hands in his lap. The silence stretched, heavy with expectation. "I've been thinking," Sophia began, her voice measured, "about what you said yesterday, about surviving, not being enough." Michael waited, sensing that this was more than a casual conversation. "I've built this company on discipline, on never letting anyone see me falter. But I wonder if, in doing that, I've lost something important." He didn't interrupt. He knew better than to fill the silence with empty words. Sophia turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Do you ever wish things were different, that you could have both, a career and a life?" Michael considered the question. "Sometimes, but I've learned that you can't have everything. You have to choose what matters most." She nodded, her gaze distant. "And what matters most to you?" "Lucas," Michael said without hesitation. "He's my world. Everything else comes second." Sophia studied him, her eyes searching for something. Weakness, regret, maybe even hope. "You're a good father." Michael smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "I try. It's not always easy." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever resent it? The sacrifices?" He shook his head. "No. Because every sacrifice I make is for him. And that's a choice I'd make 1,000 times over." Sophia was silent, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. "I envy that," she admitted. "The certainty, the love." Michael watched her, seeing the cracks in her armor. "You could have it too, if you let yourself." She looked at him, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. "I don't know how." He leaned forward, his voice gentle. "You start by letting people in, by asking for help, by admitting that you can't do it all alone." Sophia laughed, a brittle sound. "That's not easy for me." "It's not easy for anyone," Michael said. "But it's worth it." She was quiet for a long moment, then finally asked, "Why did you stay? All these years, why did you never leave?" Michael considered the question, searching for the truth. "Because I believed in what we were building. Because I wanted to prove that I could be both, a good employee and a good father. And because somewhere along the way, this place started to feel like home." Sophia's eyes softened. "You're not just an employee, Michael. You're the reason this place works." He smiled, humbled by the admission. "Thank you." She stood, moving to the window again. The city stretched out before her, vast and unknowable. "If you could ask me anything," she said suddenly, "what would it be?" Michael hesitated, caught off guard by the question. He thought about all the things he'd wondered over the years, the rumors, the secrets, the loneliness he sensed beneath her icy exterior. Finally, he asked, "Are you happy?" Sophia's breath caught.
She turned, meeting his gaze. For a moment, she looked lost, stripped of all pretense. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've spent so long chasing success, I'm not sure I'd recognize happiness if I found it." Michael nodded, understanding more than she realized. "Maybe it's not something you find. Maybe it's something you choose." She considered his words, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Maybe you're right." The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. For the first time, Michael saw not the billionaire CEO, but a woman searching for meaning, for connection, for something real.
As the day wore on, the office buzzed with activity, but Michael and Sophia moved through it with a new sense of understanding. The walls between them had lowered, just enough to let the light in. That evening, as Michael prepared to leave, Sophia stopped him at the door. "One last question," she said, her voice soft. "If you had to choose between this job and your son, what would you do?" Michael didn't hesitate. "I'd choose him, every time." Sophia nodded, a look of respect in her eyes. "That's what I thought." He smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. "Good night, Sophia." "Good night, Michael." He stepped out into the night, the city alive with promise. For the first time, he felt seen, not just as an assistant, but as a father, a man, a person who mattered. And somewhere high above, in an office filled with glass and steel, a woman watched him go, wondering if maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to choose happiness for herself.